6:30.
Someone's got it. Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Did you always start your meeting?
Start this meeting of the Chelmsford Planning Board of February 12th. I am Deirdre Connolly, the chair, and this meeting is being televised and recorded live to be available later on Chelmsford Telemedia. It's also available for participation remotely via Zoom, but should the Zoom go down, we will do our best to continue the meeting also via Zoom, but if we're unable, we'll continue the meeting live. First, we'll start with public input, and that will be limited to statements from the public that which pertain to issues that are under our jurisdiction, but which are not currently the subject of a pending public hearing before this board. So, public comment of those will be held during the public hearings for those issues. Is there anyone who would like to speak during public input? Seeing none, we'll proceed. We're going to take the discussion with the town manager, which is first on the agenda, a bit out of order. And next go to...
Do we need to vote on that? Do we need to vote on that? No? Okay.
Go to 250 Apollo Drive, which is a request for a extension of the previously granted special permit, granted in March of 23.
Representing the applicant tonight is Jim Henley. He's on Zoom. Jim, you want to just give a quick refresher as to what the board approved and any relevant updates?
Absolutely, sure. Could I share my screen with the board? What the heck happened?
Share, here it is.
Oh, I see.
I don't know if I've given you permission yet.
Yeah, it says I'm disabled.
Make co-host. Okay.
Okay. No. Tab, window, entire screen. Tab. Here we go, share. Okay, thank you for bearing with me. My name is Jim Hanley with Civil Design Consultants. I'm the professional civil engineer on the project. I get a call from the property owner yesterday letting us know that this would be in front of the board, a request for continuation. So I'll just kind of give you a once-over as to what we did and what the project entails. So you can see down here on our title block, we petitioned the town in October of 2022 for a proposed building addition to 250 Apollo Drive. The addition is has a footprint area of approximately 36,500 square feet. And you can see this dashed line here. And this was basically a two-story addition, but the only portion on the first floor that is built is within this dashed line. So there's another 10,000 square feet, give or take. So you can get a sense for where the proposed addition was proposed, the sizing of the building relative to the existing building. We're located just outside of the 100-foot wetland buffer, but we did go in for conservation review. And essentially, what we're proposing to do is take this portion here of the parking area, remove the utilities, place the building addition, reconfigure the parking as shown, and provide the building addition. So we worked with the town from, I'd say, the middle of October and even before that with some preliminary reviews, and we eventually got approved sometime in the spring of 2023 for the project. So I could show you another. Well, I think that kind of gives you the once over to what we were doing. If there's any specific questions on the application, I'll try to answer those for you.
I have a couple pretty basic questions. I looked and had difficulty locating the actual decision. I could find the agenda, the minutes and of the meetings, et cetera, and the documentation, but I couldn't find the decision. So my recollection was that we had granted a special permit for reduction in parking.
Correct, yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And then site plan, maybe?
Major business complex, yep.
A major business complex. Was that was the extent of it? Was
I
there?
think so. And I don't recall if it came under COID or not.
Yeah, it did. So we
Okay.
were, let me just kind of look on my notes here.
That's fine, I don't know if we need those
Okay.
specifics this evening.
Okay,
So then my next question is, so now you're just, it hasn't been built, so you're looking for an extension for more time to build?
correct, yep.
Yeah, the decisions call for
Right.
valid for 2 years.
2 years, yeah. So other than that, there's no change?
No.
Okay,
There's no change at all, no. And the use is very specific to the end user, so that's why there's a need to request the continuance.
sorry.
What was the reason for 2 year? Why are you asking for an extension? Why didn't you build it?
So, I'm the civil engineer, but I'll tell you what I know is that the use itself needs to have the end user in place before you would build the actual addition. They've been looking for the end user for since we got the permits and just haven't found the right fit yet.
So Evan, is this tying up any sewage or anything for other projects on the count for the overage that we've been holding for them for 2 years?
Did, Jim, do you know if you paid any fees?
There was an agreement in principle. I don't know if there was any fees exchanged.
Okay, so that agreement likely contemplated fees to be paid. I don't know exactly how DPW would handle that. It's probably the first of its kind since the limitation restriction regulation was in place.
My understanding in broad concepts is that the earlier people who bought sewer would be getting more of the low-hanging fruit, and so would be having better pricing.
Yeah, I mean, there is capacity, and there's expected to be capacity annually. But that's a good point. That if they, it could be a year, 2 years, a number of years from now where the buy-in price is increased.
But that hasn't happened yet.
It has not happened, no.
But we're not holding, there's no developments that can't get in because there's
No,
there's sewer
correct.
capacity for everybody, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, that was my point.
Okay.
Just one question, if the board does grant an extension, is there, can they, and construction does not commence, can they seek an additional extension after this?
Oh,
No, we would have to grant it.
How long
Why-
is
why
our
s-
extension
why-
for?
2 years.
2 years.
They're
Why-
requesting 2 years.
Why 2 years versus a year? Like, where are you in the process? Like, is it really gonna take 2 years? We'd like to,
Yeah, I mean, I think realistically, the building's gonna take a full 12 to 18 months to construct. So we would need the 2 years, yeah.
have you found a tenant?
No.
No.
Nothing yet?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Evan, for the timing, they have 2 years to start building, right? It's not,
Yeah, correct. It's 2 years to commence.
okay. So essentially, if we grant them the extension, it's granting them 2 years to find a tenant.
But
Start
2
building.
years to
Start construction.
apply for and obtain a building permit.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Not here.
I'll take a motion.
I'll move to grant the extension.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I believe it was unanimous.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have the proposed Chelmsford lighting bylaw.
No, we have the.
Town manager.
town
Back to
manager.
town.
Oh, town manager, back to Chen. Sorry. Sorry, Paul.
I had mentioned,
Kick you down
I had
the
mentioned to
curb.
Kelly about 7:30 for Kelly, so if this ends early, we'll find something else to go to.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good to be here. I imagine you probably first want to talk about 24 Maple Road. There are two articles, but why don't we start with 24 Maple Road? And maybe best thing for me to do is give you a little bit of the history on this so you can see where I'm coming from and bring everybody hopefully in the room and those watching up to speed. The contact that I received, or information I received from Lockheed Martin, goes back 5 months to September, beginning of September, right after Labor Day. At that time, Evan, who's our community development director and basically economic development director, as you know, we no longer have a full-time or any business development director. So Evan is, sort of filling that role as had been customary, and then obviously I'm overseeing and supporting it. But back at that time, Lockheed Martin reached out to Evan and expressed a need and an interest in 24 Maple, the Maxwell site. And at that time, and I'm going through my email history to explain to you, they inquired about the possibility of a physical connection between their existing building and a potential new building at 24 Maple. And the question was who had the air rights over the rail trail right-of-way, and would we the town make an inquiry to the appropriate state official and agency? That's at September, so that was on the Thursday the 5th, going back on the 6th. The communication I had with Evan, and basically we reached out to Representative Simon Cataldo's office. And could they assist us with the Executive Office of Economic Development regarding the air rights across the rail trail? Because at the time, again, the perception was and the information was that they were looking to build an extension across the rail trail. And we really wanted to get information of, is this possible, and are there air rights, and what have you. Representative, and then at that time, just so the board's aware, I notified the select board on Friday, September 6th, that Lockheed Martin had expressed the need for future expansion of its operations at 16 Maple Road, and that the company was interested in the property at 24 Maple Road, and the possibility of an overhead walkway across the rail trail. Representative Cataldo's office got back to us about a month later on October 21st, and that basically all they were able to discern was that Mass DOT had informed them that the rail trail now belongs to the town of Chelmsford, and Mass DOT would not be involved in any easement granting, any follow-up. And that's sort of where it lied until recently, where the discussions came place, and they again met with Evan, called Evan to meet with them regarding their interest in expansion, and that had followed the meeting that you had taken place in this room back in beginning of January, and the information regarding the zoning conflict in the neighborhood. And again, coming out of that meeting and the concerns Lockheed had was, I think they wanted to make it clear to the community, and again, reached out to Evan, basically invited him over there to the facility. I was not present for the meeting, but Evan reported back to me that that they were interested in the expansion at the Maxwell site, or the Agway site, however you want to refer to it, and Evan at that time suggested that the next step would be a meeting with the chair and vice chair of the planning board prior to the February 26th meeting, of which was scheduled for the rezoning of the Kate's Corner area. And again, I was copied on correspondence from the vice chair on the February 5th. And again, there seems to be somehow this connection by some that, this is just because of the town's budget difficulties. I want to make it clear. This has nothing to do with the town's budget difficulties. We're not chasing revenue. We've never chased revenue. It's not part of the town's plan, and is not part of our plan. And I thought we dispelled that notion quite some time ago in the community. We basically look to be responsible to the community in terms of our residents as well as our business investors in the community. And one of the things we've talked about for years, is the whole idea of expedited permitting. And I use the word expedited permitting, it's not expedited approval, it's expedited permitting. And the nature of that and why it's in the development community is because landowners, whether they're residential or commercial, want an answer in a timely manner. And usually that's basically a 90-day window that they're looking for answers. That's the speed at which they go at. And as many of you are aware, I'm the president of the Middlesex 3 Corporation, have been for years, and have been involved with the economic development not only in Chelmsford, but along the Middlesex 3 or Route 3 corridor for over 15 years. And so I do have a little bit of the pulse of what's out there and some sense of how the economic development works. And sadly, I've sat in this community and have seen the loss of some of our corporate partners, such as Mercury Computer when they opted to move to Andover, and Kronos when they opted to move to Lowell to the Cross Point Tower. And one of the things that we hear from them is, what is the town's attitude? What is the town's ability to provide us a response? And they'll accept no for an answer if the answer is no. And reputation is everything out there, because it isn't the case that a company comes in and says, gee, we're interested in your community. They hire professional people, and they've already looked and know everything about you before you even know they're looking at you. And many times you're not even put on the list of places they'll look at based on the research and work that they do out there. And that's just how it's done. And it's probably no different than what residents do, quite frankly. They do their research, look online, talk to others about types of communities and where they want to live, and so forth. That's just how the world works. And you see these concerns in other communities, particularly, you're even reading about it last weekend where, what they're doing in northern Middlesex School District about a town of Ashby may be closing their only school, and what's that going to mean for the residents in their community and the attractiveness of their community, and will people want to still buy there or remain to live there? So again, coming back to this situation, what I'm seeking to do, and all I'm seeking to do here, and I wrote to you and I wrote to the select board that I placed the article on the warrant based upon the feedback we've had from Lockheed. And I wrote and made it very clearly that in the event that Lockheed Martin and the property owner opted not to advance to their potential real estate transaction, that I would take no action at town meeting, because I don't want to jeopardize the community by doing a zoning that we think is for Lockheed Martin, and then it doesn't take place, and then there's a worse consequence to the community. Since that time, you've received a correspondence on February 10th that was sent to Evan from Lockheed Martin, where they've now not only expressed an interest to rezone to IA 24 Maple, but also their existing parking lot at 14 Maple to IA, from CA to IA, because they believe and they're concerned about, and their research comes that they don't believe that they can do what they envision to do for expansion unless the areas are zoned, all 3 areas are zoned IA. And then the latest correspondence that came in this afternoon at 4:10, again, makes it clear from Lockheed Martin that they've received feedback directly from some of the planning board members. It's their intention to be transparent and collaborative through the process. They're interested in exploring what limited IA might entail with the town from our parking lot area and 24 Maple. It's unclear if CB would allow some of the ideas to even be considered. We also had the opportunity to hear from residents, and their goal, being Lockheed's goal, is to find a solution that benefits both our company and the community. We are committed to operating in harmony with the surrounding area and respecting the village charm we've grown to appreciate over the years. So that's what has guided my actions, and that's what brings me here this evening. it's very clear Lockheed Martin is interested in expansion. Again, I've seen it for 5 months. You've seen the correspondence from them. And I think it's something that has to be taken seriously. We have to respect, and I think they're trying to respect the concerns of the neighborhood. But my concern is, if we don't do anything, I just don't want to get a phone call one day saying, gee, we've relocated 5 miles down the road on 110 in Westford, or someplace else. Because what I see with Lockheed Martin is a presence in the community for decades, a responsible tenant, a responsible property owner, a responsible presence, providing well-paying jobs that any community would desire, and an interest going forward to continue to work with the community and the neighborhood. So that's my opening statement. I'll answer any questions that you have.
And I'd like to
and go from there.
interject, just
Sure.
because I was a planning board member that was in touch with Lockheed Martin. I was informed by a resident in town that they had a neighborhood meeting on Saturday, which I attended. Their general manager from the building was there and was talking to the residents. It was a great meeting. I think a lot of great ideas came out. And I went there really to kind of get a feel of what the neighbors, how they felt about it, right? Like, that was my intention. But one of the things that he said, which prompted me afterwards to follow up with him, was at the meeting they were surprised. They actually, because one of the residents, someone brought up the fact that they were asking for IA. And they were like, yeah, we're a little surprised about the Warren article. Because, we're just beginning our exploration. We're just, we're looking to figure out, they do need to expand. Paul is absolutely right. They are at capacity, and they're trying to figure out what they can do. He goes, but, we're open, like the email said, right? There's a lot of ideas came out. They're open to having Maxwell's as a parking lot under the current zoning. You can CB, you can, if you look at what they're selling, like the pamphlet for Maxwell, it says office space, it says, you can have all of that on CB. So those were the things that were thrown out. So when I received and by the way, the general manager did give me his business card.
I'm sorry?
The general manager did hand me his business card, because we did speak about it afterwards. He's like, if you have any questions, contact me. So when I saw the email that came out on Monday night, it was a very different tone than what was said to the neighbors. So I followed up with the general manager, and I'm like, can you please, we received the following email from Lockheed Martin. I was under the impression that this was very preliminary. Can you help, explain to me what my misunderstanding was? We ended up talking on the phone. He was very transparent. He informed me that Lockheed has not gotten approval from corporate even to purchase Maxwell's at this point. So it is very preliminary. When corresponding with Evan Belansky, obviously it's a lot easier if the 3 parcels are zoned the same to go through the town, right? And I totally agree, right? Trying to do anything with 3 different zonings on your parcels is just inefficient. And they will, they're basically we want to get it, zoned so it makes it easier. And I'm like, absolutely, totally get that. Whether that's IA or some sort of IA limited or, whatever works. But he did want to be transparent that they have not gotten approval from corporate to purchase Maxwell's at this point. And, they need to kind of just figure out. So I left it very open. I'm like, okay, we're having our meeting on the 22nd. The town really wants you to stay. We really, like you. We're happy to figure out what that zoning is that you need to make this work. So it was a very, good conversation. I just want to just make sure everybody is out there, because when I first saw it, I was like, oh, this is, big bad corporate saying one thing to the neighbors and saying another thing to the town, right? And I wanted to get to the bottom of it. And I had a great conversation and I really do believe that they do want to work with us, right? Like, so I'm glad I personally reached out to them and got that cleared, because, you know, your initial email is like, well, this is not what they told us on Saturday. But that being said, I think presenting this at town meeting, and, you know, us changing all of that to IA is very premature. I think we should work with Lockheed and understand, you know, where they are in the process, like invite them in, and, you know, explore maybe an IA limited.
And what would that be, a special town meeting down the line?
I mean, you know, we could possibly do, I don't know, the timing from, like, could we do like a special town meeting on the second night of April? Like, it could, I don't know how our schedule is, how that work. Is that a special town meeting in the summer, or is it
It could, I mean,
in the
we've called
fall?
special town meetings in June for analog when we
Right.
had the issue of the
Right.
TIF. So
So-
we'll call it as necessary.
But I
yes.
want to do, like, I think it's important for us to do the right thing for both Lockheed
agree.
and for the neighborhood, and I think that's what we all want. And I think they're ready, you know, they're willing to work with us. And again, like, my biggest concern was like, how packed are you, right? Like, how much space do you need? You know, how urgent is this? Like, all of that, like, and he was very transparent, right? And so that's how we left it. My fear as a planning board member and as a town meeting rep is going to town meeting with this article right now that isn't fully vetted. We've done stuff in the past where the town meeting has voted it down, and I don't want it to be like leaving anybody with a bad taste in their mouth, like, or any, like, I want us to really do our diligence and do a good job so we can fully support it for them.
I want to just say that we do have an open hearing on this property that's been continued. So I think anything that we discuss about it should be either about the process or something like that, but I don't think we should actually discuss the merits of the zoning or not, because we have an open hearing on that. So I think it's inappropriate for us to have that kind of conversation here at this time. at least.
You know, there's no open public hearing. You've had a discussion.
Well,
There-
yeah, I
there
mean,
is.
for
We
a
continued
zoning,
it.
for a
We
warrant article, we also need to
You have
have
to have a public hearing,
a
right?
public
Yeah.
hearing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So
that's-
that,
You don't have a public hearing now. The January 8th meeting was just a discussion. The zoning public hearing is scheduled to open on the 26th
Right.
for all of the
okay,
articles.
because I thought we had continued it.
No.
Okay.
Well, it is two separate things. I mean, we were having a public hearing about the neighborhood, and now we're
You
having,
were having a
then we have
hearing.
to have a,
Yeah, let's be
the difference
careful
is
about
public-
using the
giving
word public hearing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we were just, basically, we gave the impression that our discussions about this property was going to take place at our next meeting, not at this meeting. So I think we
Right.
need
Which,
to hold
which,
to that.
which
Now we
is
have more
fair, because
information.
both,
Which I don't mind discussing the merits of the warrant article as far as whether it should be a warrant article. I don't think it should be, because I think it's essentially end running this board. And I think it's perilous because I for one, don't think that I could support the warrant article just simply because it hasn't gone through our sort of normal process. Is this going to be our process, is that the town manager is going to put warrant articles and then have us play catch up either to say we agree or we don't agree and goes to the town? I don't think the voting town members, the representatives, are really going to go for that. So I think it's a little perilous strategy.
If I could address that point, any citizen or town board or official has the right to put an article before the town meeting warrant. So this idea that I'm doing something improper is not factually correct.
Yeah, I didn't say it was
No,
improper.
no, but I just want to know.
I said it was
no.
unwise.
It may be, that's not, you didn't say it was unwise. You used a different word. So my
Well, I
point
didn't-
is,
it
my
didn't mean
point
it was
is,
improper.
the warrant is signed in accordance with the charter, in accordance with the requirements of state law. It's going to be signed by the select board. And then what happens is the planning board holds a public hearing, as you discussed. Then you make a recommendation at town meeting, then there's a debate at town meeting. Your recommendation is heard, as is the recommendation of the select board, finance committee, there's a debate, and there's a vote. That's how the process works. So this, I just really take exception, because it's been said in some other correspondence that somehow I'm commanding the zoning of the town. I just don't think that's fair. Quite frankly, I have a responsibility, and I'm being nothing but transparent. to the process.
No,
now,
no.
As I said earlier, I wrote, and I said earlier tonight, I won't move this article if there's not a binding purchase and sale agreement between the parties. Because quite frankly, if there is, and the zoning is contemplated, then there's a public hearing, not only for the town meeting, but then there's going to be a public hearing for the special permit before this board of whether you're going to grant the special permit. That's how the process works. And I don't think tonight we're here deciding the special permit, because we don't even know what it is and how it's going to be. So I think it's a difference between the special permit process versus the zoning process. And so, like I said, I just
No,
want to make
I
clear that,
think, Paul,
that everybody has the right, whether it's a citizen of the town or other town boards and officials. And we've done this in the past. We can go back as far as the billboard zoning.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, but
Right,
it is a
so-
matter where that is currently before the board. I guess that's my point, is that this property and its zoning is something that we have taken up and are considering and have already had some kind of a hearing on it. And so then for the town manager to come and insert into that process something else about that property at the same time is essentially saying, I really don't care what it is you're doing, this is what I think should be done. That's what it communicates to me, at least, as a board member.
I think.
But, and I also want, if I said anything that sounded like I said it was improper, I apologize. I did not mean that. What I do mean to say is I think it's unwise, because it's a matter that we currently have before us.
And I mean, again, like, I think Paul did his responsible thing, right? Like, you know, I don't think, like, I think he acted completely responsible. I think, and he should have done, you know,
Well, except for it should have come to the hearing when we had the hearing.
Or, you
That
know-
would have been the time to introduce this information that we're now hearing tonight.
okay, or
So-
at least come to us, I guess, maybe
So
before.
what kind of a process are we having if relevant information is not being given at the time that the planning board is opening the matter to look into it, but at some other point when there's driven by some other agenda?
I get it, agreed. My concern on this is if we start presenting this to town meeting at this point, I'm afraid that I don't want this to not, I want the right thing to pass for Lockheed and for the neighborhood.
So there's a
I'm
couple
afraid-
issues.
But let's hold on a second. I'm just afraid if we start going down this process now, this gets presented, we debate it at town meeting, this is gonna leave a lot of animosity within the town. And I don't, like, this is, like, what I witnessed on Saturday was a very good discussion. And I think there was willingness by both parties to come to something that works.
So maybe, there's the question of the warrant article and the question of what specifically should happen with Lockheed's request. And then there's the question of the zoning of the neighborhood. Sorry. And, I mean, I guess one strategy would be for us to say we wouldn't support the warrant article because we think there may be further discussion between the residents, the town, the planning board, and the applicant to reach an amenable solution that isn't necessarily the one that Paul is proposing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think where we started getting to at the last meeting was that type of process. And I think based on whatever the project might or might not be, we might have a specific IA zoning, or maybe we can make up a new type of zoning like we had discussed before that meets the needs of the specific project that also satisfies the applicant and also protects the town if they do move in the future. Because I think that's one of the concerns about this specific change to IA is that if something goes wrong and Lockheed goes out of business or moves, that leaves the town very, very vulnerable because the IA zoning in that area leaves a lot to the imagination. And I think that if we can come up with a zoning solution that meets the needs of everyone, I think that's the best course of action, and I don't think we're close to figuring that out yet. So I think that this going to town meeting for this specific solution is premature.
And I just want to also interject, they also did float, and I don't know if they've talked to you guys about it, but even, entertaining some sort of deed restriction on it. they were willing to do. So again, I mean, I just think right now, like, I would ask that this article get pulled at this time, is my request, like, and let us get to the right solution and propose something a little bit more holistic, whether that be on the second night, if we have the right timing, or in
But
the
that's what I'm a
summer.
little confused about, because you're saying the second night, as you know,
I don't know.
town meeting can operate within the scope of the warrant article. Clearly, the IA sounds like it's the most extreme, right? So if we come in with an IA light or an IA limited, that's within the scope of the article, and that can advance a town meeting under the article. But, so that's why I'm a little confused about this idea that, well, we maybe we'll go with a special town meeting with it, which is fine. I'm good for the process, but I just want you to explain from my perspective. I'm basically casting the big umbrella, and it doesn't preclude the discussions over the next 11 weeks, because I have no idea how long this process you envision taking out could come up with that solution and would allow us to advance. That's the way I look at it, because again, I'll reiterate, I made it clear that if there wasn't a binding purchase and sale agreement, there's going to be no action on my article, but I didn't want to preclude that from happening in the event that things do come together, because I also was contacted by the owners of Maxwell's, and they're supportive, obviously, from their perspective. So again, we're trying to be inclusive, transparent, and open about the process. So again, you asked me to pull the article, but then what do we then say? I'm not hearing what do we then say to Lockheed about what they want, other than we've pulled the article. And then what do we tell them that
We
the
continue
board's
the,
going to discuss
we
on
continue the
26th?
process that we started on January 8th.
Right,
to
which
come
they
up with
weren't
a
present
solution.
for. Nor was I.
They were.
They were.
Yes,
they
the
were.
wording was
They
here.
weren't. They were here, but they.
They had representatives.
Right.
Yep,
And
and
they
they spoke.
spoke.
They
I
spoke as
wasn't
well.
present for.
And they
No,
didn't.
Paul, I
didn't-
got a
It was
question for you.
posted.
Like,
There was an
Right.
agenda.
Okay. Right. No, but I just want to say that this again.
Yeah.
I've not met in the block again. I don't want people to think there's things going on behind
No,
the
no,
scenes
no,
that we're
no,
not
no.
talking of.
I have a quick question. I know you're talking about having this agreement in place, but then I'm going to go to the attorney at the table here. Just trying to, for years, we've stayed away from spot zoning. And this is spot zoning. If you're trying to change a zone for one particular entity in town, that's better for the neighborhood, I understand that, but it's just for one client, that's spot zoning.
It's not, this is not. People throw the word spot zoning.
No, no, no,
around.
I'm
It's
just
not
trying,
spot
we've
zoning.
always tried to stay away from it,
Not
and
spot-
on this
yeah.
committee now
Although
for
we-
7 years, we've been trying to stay away from that, and this is, like, this seems to me as that's what
Well,
spot zoning
I think
is.
spot zoning refers more to the particular parcel than the particular.
So
I don't think like this
so
is
you
a-
can
this
change a
is-
zone for just one particular company.
This is pretty spot zoning.
Well, I think we have a broader question here.
No, but I think that's
Because
where
I
you're gonna end
think,
up in that
and as part of of all the discussions we've had, including the ones where we were just entertaining the possibility of some changes, it became pretty clear that we have uses in our general IA that nobody in town wants except perhaps in very special and limited places. And that's really what the problem is. And that certainly points us to a limited IA solution. Now, a limited IA solution can be applied even to this bill because, as you point out, that would be a reduction in scope rather than an increase. So, and without a PNS in place anyway, the whole thing's going to be moot. So I would suggest that we go ahead with this and be prepared to offer an appropriate amendment if necessary on the, I think at this point, rather outside chance that there will be a PNS.
So I actually disagree with you. I'm not a lawyer, but I think changing
I'm
a
not either
zone,
for this
while
purpose.
if we were to create a different zone, and that's less or more restrictive, it is a different zone. So I'm not sure it would be within that scope. In
know,
addition to that, this warrant article is for one parcel.
It'll be two parcels because 16 and 24.
Right.
maybe.
Right.
3, if we do
Three.
IA
Well, if you do
limited.
three, if you do three.
That's
for-
that's kind of my
for IA.
point. Is that
Yeah, the fact of the matter is there's a good-sized block of land there.
But having it in writing before we know what it is not a good idea because it's going to be out and public and people are going to see that text as the warrant article.
And that's
And
a
that gets
good,
people-
well-framed political argument
And
for why this
that
might be
is
problematic.
that's not a good starting position to be in.
As a planning board member, before I can vote to change the zoning on something, I need to see a plan. Are we talking a building, a parking lot? That's what I.
I don't think we can ask to see specifics of a build-out when we're considering.
Can you add to this
limitations of
article
zoning.
then? If this was gonna go limited IA for Lockheed Martin, can we, the intent of our first meeting was to clean up the whole neighborhood.
Right, and it didn't
Can
have
we-
anything to do
Can
really
we,
with
can we
Lockheed
clean it
Martin.
all up at once? There was discussions that Lockheed Martin should go away from there in that meeting too.
And when you say
But-
cleaning up, what you mean is reduce the conflict,
Right, reduce the
Right.
conflict. So
Now-
like
Which
the,
was
like the
to-
single-family
which was to
homes should be
lower-
residential,
not increase.
single family. They're right now CB, some of those single homes. There's some of the neighbors wanted those changed.
Yeah.
Can that be part of this article too then? And let's clean the whole neighborhood right up.
Yeah, I think that's a better approach.
I see
even
no
from a
reason
town
why
meeting
not.
present, like,
I mean, I'm just trying to say, you're gonna spot in the
Well,
middle, then clean up the
I
outsides of
think
it.
that's, again, I think that's a better approach even to get this through town meeting, right? Like, again, the goal is to do the right thing, make the zoning that's appropriate for this neighborhood, that it addresses the neighbors, the town, and this business, and then have town meeting approve it.
Well, and I think it's important that our starting point is that we're coming from a place that we would like to see Lockheed stay. We would like to see them have the ability to expand. We would like to do it in such a way that there's, we can find a compromise. Maybe there's, like you said, uniformity of those structures, or of those parcels rather, but not IA as we currently have it. Also, hopefully, something more amenable to the neighbors. I had thought just, it's 1.87 acres. The building is 9,150 square feet. I don't know what size of a building they had envisioned to be on there, but if there would be possibility for some, that the school could use the parking lot is one thing. If there could be a point a bit carved out, one of the things the neighbors said is they wanted more of a village feel, and so maybe there could be a small piece carved out that could have retail and or a green space. I mean,
If
And
I
I
may
like to build
interject,
that-
if what the chair just said, the board would act upon and basically make that some type of motion, I'll gladly withdraw the article, and I'll explain to the select board that basically the article's been withdrawn because the planning board has gone on record of basically and stated that they intend to find just what you described, a common solution for the ongoing presence and potential expansion for Lockheed Martin that it's in harmony with the neighborhood.
Well, that's something
We
that
all
we
have
could
the
have
same
done in
goal.
January when we had the hearing. That's the thing
That was not what, that's,
You see what I'm saying? If Lockheed had come forward
That's-
at that point and said,
that's
look, we'd
not
like
the
some sort of
impression that
solution to
came out
work
of
this
that meeting
out,
in
then
January.
we could have started this in January as opposed to
That was not the
today.
proper forum, and then that meeting turned into an anti-Lockheed sentiment.
No, it didn't.
Don't- It absolutely did. It absolutely did.
I will say,
It
I was
absolutely
probably
did.
the biggest
It
for
absolutely did. I
RV.
agree with you on that.
Yeah, it did. It
absolutely
did.
did.
So what
okay?
changed in
I
a
had
month?
to step in and suggest the IA light.
Yeah,
So
That IA light is not going to take form in a consensus agreement in a month or two.
Right,
You
and
know
that's,
that.
that's fine.
I know that.
that's
the
why I
neighborhood
don't
knows
want
that.
this article
Right,
on the
and-
Springtown meeting, because
That's fine.
we talked about how, when we started this discussion for that neighborhood, we talked about how we didn't want to rush it for town meeting in the spring, that we likely wouldn't get it done for town meeting in the spring. And I want to stick to that because I want to make sure that we're being very thoughtful about how we're doing it, as opposed to trying to fit it
Paul,
in.
let me understand. I think what you're wanting is a date certain, right? You want to be
No, I'm
able
not
to
e-
say.
I'm not even asking for a
you're-
date certain.
You're wanting to be able to say, within this time frame, there will be some sort of resolution so that Lockheed can know, okay, I know that by April or May, I'm going to know, right? It's some certainty. I'm guessing, is that why you put the article on, to force essentially the issue to occur within a specific time frame that is known?
No.
And if that's the case, you know that this board can work to a deadline. We've done it twice now. So I think that if if instead what you want is for this board to have resolved, have come up with some sort of equitable solution for everybody by some certain time frame, then let us know and we'll do that.
I'm not asking for a deadline that can't be met, so I'm not saying it has to be May and so forth. My concern was.
Well, the Channel article says that it's April.
But and the reason I said that article, because the information I had after your meeting in January was that basically the sense was Lockheed Martin's presence at this location is not desired.
And that's still an accurate statement as far as the neighborhood is concerned. You don't know any different.
And therefore, my
don't
job
think it
is to.
is.
No,
my
I
job
was
I made it very clear.
No,
I have
I'm sorry.
emails from neighbors
Okay, but this
indicating
board,
that.
this board clearly expressed.
You did not
that
clearly
desi-
express anything other than tonight, that
Okay.
that you're now.
I disagree.
Marcy, you were at that meeting as well.
Yeah, I went to that meeting on Saturday too. I listened to the neighbors. You know, the neighbors were very complimentary of Lockheed Martin. They weren't, we don't want you, we want you out of here. They even brought up other problems that they're currently dealing with lighting in the back and some of these other things. And Lockheed Martin was very, oh, we can take care, let's take some notes, let's get some stuff done. We want to make sure that we are working with our neighbors. The neighborhood has some concerns, and I kind of agree with them. Like, are we going to completely build this up, take over the slab, add some more things? What will it do again to that, small town thing? They even said, hey, this would be great here, or doing this, or doing this. They also came up with some things and brought them to the representatives from Lockheed Martin. So that meeting on Saturday, I left feeling really good about it. The neighbors seemed to, share their thoughts and their opinions, and they weren't, we don't want you here, goodbye. They were, hey, this is what we'd like to see. Can you help us with these current problems that we're having? This is what, we'd like to see, not maybe go to the IA, keep it with the CB, you do this in this year, or maybe expand in this year. So the neighbors at that meeting were very well received, very well spoken, and, want to work with them.
I think the
great to
sentiment
hear.
you heard at that meeting, Evan, was anti-IA. That's the problem. And to change the entire area to IA is just for Lockheed, that may leave tomorrow, who knows, is a problem for this town that we've experienced in a couple other areas, and we don't want to go through it again. And so that is the sentiment, I think, that was felt. I didn't know Lockheed was actually considering expanding until the emails. That
I
never
did not
came
either.
up in January.
That's correct.
And I think, had we known that, any inkling of it, we wouldn't have even probably brought up that neighborhood as a rezoning.
Right, exactly.
So I think,
I agree, which speaks to part of our challenge about how to share information and how to engage, which is a totally separate topic, but this is another microcosm of
Yeah.
the process of communicating and sharing information doesn't exist.
Okay, can we
But at
just,
the end of the day, I don't introduce information unless I have clear and specific authorization.
and I'm not
Because-
blaming you, it would have been nice for them to say that in the
Understood.
January meeting.
Understood,
That, hey, we want to work with you because we need to
They
expand.
may not have known that that was the proper
Yeah.
forum.
oh, okay, regardless, I think
fair.
we're at a point where I do think we should ask, and I did ask them on the phone, they haven't gotten back to me, what is their timeline? Like, how urgent is this? And I did tell them, we have the option of doing a special town meeting, and they were supposed to get back to me on that. But I do think and they are coming in February, in the next meeting. So I think that's a question we ask them, is find out their
Coming
timing.
here
The open public,
They're aware of the February 26th meeting. My suggestion, for what it's worth, is to get clarity on 24 Maple as opposed to 16 Maple. If they are truly interested in acquiring that and are willing to put a restriction on it for a parking lot or other things limiting some of the unwanted IA uses, or maybe not even proceeding with any development in the short term, maybe they should articulate that. But I think it's important for them to indicate to the town to what extent is parking expansion of urgency. My understanding is their parking is maxed out mathematically. They're operating under a special permit for reduced parking. Therefore, they cannot increase headcount with
Got
people
it.
driving to the site.
makes sense.
So that is an immediacy urgency. Maybe 24 Maple under IA zoning can be an immediate short-term solution. But that's something that they're going to have to articulate, and then the board's going to have to come to,
Why would it have to be under IA zoning?
CB allows
well,
it.
no, no. I provided hard copies of an email from council answering that question.
But Evan, that email is confusing, and it's currently in place now. Their parking lot is in CB.
You need a
sorry,
use.
CA.
You need a use tied to the principal use. Their principal use is zoned under IA, not CB.
But their
I've had this
parking lot is in a
conversation with them.
different
If they want to occupy the existing Maxwell's buildings and use it as CB uses, which is office, then they could use the parking lot.
Evan, you're missing my point. Their current situation is the building's in IA and their parking lot's in CA.
I'm aware of that. They have a use variance to use that parking lot.
So why can't we do the same
We
thing?
don't allow use variances anymore.
Yeah, we got rid of that some years ago.
You imagine use variances being allowed?
So then we do something, we come
All
up with a
I'm
different
suggesting
solution.
is right here, right now, I think it's premature to ask the manager to withdraw it. If Lockheed clarifies, gets a PNS, introduces some sort of voluntary restriction for the short term, and it's made clear, crystal clear as to what they intend to do with 24 Maple. Are they demolishing the buildings, expanding the parking lot? Are they keeping the building? What are they using it for?
They don't have approval. They still
All
have
I'm
to go
saying
through
is,
their
right now,
corporate
none of us
ladder
have
to get it
any scope or scale as to what
approved.
the urgency, or if there is any urgency. If they can
Which
wait,
is,
then
which is
Norton-
exactly the reason why we should withdraw this.
No, let them, give them an opportunity to articulate it. What if they come back and tell you they've been trying to increase headcount?
Okay, but if corporate doesn't say go ahead
I understand all that.
and go buy it, then
So Paul, if we left this in there, for process,
Yeah.
can you modify it? Once the select board signs it,
Yeah.
the verbiage, does it have to stay the same?
Well,
Or
we could
within-
offer a friendly
or inside-
amendment.
yeah,
We
you could have an
work
amendment
it.
within the
can't
scope
do
of
the
the
But it's got to be
article.
careful
No,
of
why not?
scope.
You
But
gotta
why
be
not,
careful
why
of
couldn't
scope,
you
yeah.
just leave it in there now, and then if we have the public hearings with the town, we'll have our meeting with the neighborhood, and if they're against it, we pull it.
As I understand, the warrant article pertains to what, 24?
It would then be in 16, it'd be
Okay,
based on
if
the
it-
latest
if it- if
information
it-
they have.
If it,
yeah.
if it applies to both,
Yeah.
then we would have a clear option to reduce its scope with friendly amendment or
but I
several
don't think
ways.
I don't, look at, there's a lot of mistrust, and this town's been burnt with a lot of changes to zoning. I don't think it's, I just think it's be careful what we're putting out there. Especially where then we're gonna go, we're gonna change it, because there's a lot of misinformation, and people perceive information, they see this, they don't trust this.
Okay.
I just think we should just
But
put
we
out
can
what we
keep
wanted.
proceeding to try and illuminate, shine a light in the dark places and figure out what the neighborhood and what Lockheed and
No
what-
one's disagreeing with that.
Right,
I
so why
think-
don't we
I think
leave
the
it here?
disagreement is whether this stays in or not.
Okay, how about if we leave it here and we keep working towards finding a better solution? And if we're able to, then we can present that as a friendly amendment. And I think at that point, the town manager would stand down with his presented warrant article. And if we can't, then we can say, we're working on this and we're not at a conclusion, but we expect to be at a conclusion in X time frame.
And I disagree with that approach. I think putting IA in there as a warrant article is a huge mistake.
You've said that.
Because people are going to latch on to IA, not let go of that idea, no matter what we say or how we amend it.
Yep.
I've presented multiple times at town meeting, and successfully, I might add, and I think that's a mistake to put it in there. Given some of the questions I received at town meeting this past time, that is a mistake.
I agree, because I think the goal is to whatever we present, we want it to pass. And I think, again, I don't disagree that we can change it. I don't disagree, we have those mechanisms. But again, perception is 75% of the battle here, right? And when people get things in their mind, it's hard to get them away from that to see what we're trying to do. So I just think we should pull it for now, and
Well,
then.
it's not ours to pull.
No,
I pull it and let's work at it, and let's, next week we can find out their urgency. We can ask the questions and we can put what we need.
Okay.
If it needs for
Yeah,
the
well-
spring, if it needs a special town meeting or whatever, we'll work it all out.
All
Well-
right, so how I would like to proceed is that we continue this discussion at the next meeting after we have more information from Lockheed Martin, and we can make a more informed decision.
Yeah, I would
When you-
agree.
when you
And
say
let's-
that, are
let's
you
not
referring
spend a
to-
lot of time about whether we withdraw it or not. I mean, let's spend our time on what the replacement ought to be, whether we want a limited IA, and those considerations where we can actually contribute something.
So as the publicity goes out about this warrant article,
It's not our warrant
I'll send them to you.
No, but
It's not our warrant article.
Doesn't
We-
matter.
We do not
It's-
have
it's
the
a zoning
option
article.
of withdrawing it.
It's a zoning article. We will get complaints.
All we get to do is recommend.
the outcome I want to see is that leads the best chance for success.
Yeah.
That's what,
And if I'm
Yeah.
standing here this evening and seeing 4 members of the planning board who are concerned that this is going to undermine the chance for success, then, as I said earlier to the chair, I'll pull the article, because in essence, I'm satisfied now that the information is out there, it's transparent, and people are aware of what's at stake. And that wasn't the case a month ago. That's, and
That's fair.
that's, you asked me, why did I do it? That's why I did it. Nothing more, nothing less. I haven't, I was as stunned as you were, and that letter came Monday, before the meeting, and I forwarded it to you, and I shared it with the select board, and then the letter today, so that's all I can do. So I think we can probably stop it here, and I think we can report back to Lockheed Martin, as early as tomorrow, is that we had a discussion, we're gonna pull the article, but there's clear intent by all parties to accelerate the consideration, to facilitate their ongoing presence as well as interest in expansion in harmony with the neighborhood. And I think that's what we all agree upon.
That's fair.
Well said.
So that's all I'm trying to do, and nothing more, nothing less. All right.
okay, the second article.
Second
of the
article.
zoning.
Second article is,
Before we go on to that, thank you,
Before we
Paul.
go on to that. Thank you. No, and thank you, and all right, the second article is also a sticky wicket. And this has to do with the 129 corridor. And again, I'll sort of do what I did with the Maple Road one, is give some perspective on this. Back the second week of January, again, we Evan Lansky and I received word from Doug Roby, who's the property owner at 285 Mill Road, which is just to put it into perspective, because I think people don't often get addresses, is that's the site where the Lighthouse School was just at, and where historically Lifelinks was before then. So 285 Mill Road, it's in our overlay district. It abuts the on-ramp to Route 3, just as you come around there before you get to Zoll and so forth, just because I think it's helpful to have perspective, and why would I do this, and why would this come? And they basically, because Lighthouse School, as we know, has vacated the site, they are interested, obviously, in re-tenanting the property. And the challenge that they have, much like we see not only in Chelmsford, but Burlington and, everywhere else, is they're not receiving much interest in the office space use of the property. They also didn't receive any interest in terms of putting another school into the site. So obviously, they have consultants, they're in the real estate business, and where they are receiving interest is in retail. And the more defined retail is in takeout restaurants on the property. And the reason for that is because the adjacency to the highway, the Route 3. You're right on, off, there's a traffic light. We know Press Cafe is across the street. They're quite successful. But despite our vision in the overlay, there has been no other amenities in that area. And their suggestion was they're interested in basically raising the building, the 31,000 square foot building, and then putting up 2 standalone drive-through establishments, which our overlay zoning does not permit, which is why the zoning change. So again, same sort of outreach to let them know that what do they see? And the concern is that the cost, the investment to take the building down, get your financing, and secure a tenant for standalone freestanding drive-through, it's not going to be for a plaza. And basically, you have to have what they call grade A tenancies. Basically, people who have a track record and who can enter into a long-term lease, and that generally tends to be your Starbucks and your McDonald's Corps and those type of things. Those are the people who can make those commitments and can sign those leases in the environment. And so, once again, we met with them, and as Evan described, the next step at that time was to bring the information to the chair and the vice chair of the board. That was held a week ago Friday. I wasn't able to be present at that meeting because I had a commitment at Neshoba Tech regarding a budgetary matter. So again, I was not at that meeting. And again, my sense on this thing is time has told us what has happened out there and what has not happened out there. I believe, as I said in my memo, that you can make through your permitting process, the design of a facility appropriate, as you did in the center with the CVS. Because I know there were concerns, they didn't want the traditional looking CVS in the center, and it happened, and you see it in other communities as well. And so once again, I pick up the mantra and put the zoning article on, with, again, the understanding is that I'm okay with a negative vote, but I think that's better than not asking. And I think, and again, that's the sense we have from the property owner, is that they appreciate the recognition and the efforts of the town, and that's what we're trying to do in this case. And I think that it's worthy of consideration, and that's why I placed it on the warrant and informed the select board, informed you, and why I'm standing here this evening is I just think that it would add benefit. They did make a suggestion about a gas station. I don't want to see a gas station. They didn't propose any zoning change to put a gas station there, but that's about the only other interest that we've ever heard out there for that site. And therefore, I think that what would happen in that case, because I understand there's a neighborhood on Mill Road, you're not going to get significant traffic for this on Mill Road. You're going to get 95% of your traffic is going to come from Barica Road and Route 3, and they're going to go drive in, they're going to drive out and go that way. And under the zoning that's out there, it only allows three of these we already have one at Press Cafe. It only allows three in total under our zoning bylaw, and it only allows it in that little corridor of Mill Road before Zoll, which is where this is, and Barica Road up to Alpha Road. That's the only place that this could take place under our zoning, and even under the zoning amendment. And again, we'll continue to refine this because the most recent information we received from them is they're actually looking smaller in terms of seating and footprint of the drive-through, and obviously they'd like the expansion of hours because 10 p.m. in our bylaw just isn't sufficient for any that nature. So that's what brings me here this evening to share this with you, and I welcome, as we just did, your feedback on this, because again, I want to be able to at least answer to the select board, to the community, to others, when they say, why do we have vacant space on 129 or elsewhere? Why don't we have amenities out there? And that's why, again, doing my job, which is to be transparent, bring it forward, and bring it for consideration by this board and the community.
I'm just wondering why we wouldn't make it a regular practice when you will become aware of these kinds of needs that zoning would help, to come and present as you are, and then agree on some sort of time frame in which we will look to implement that, and sort of bypass this whole warrant article thing. is what I'm thinking.
But
I
that's the
mean,
vehicle, Joel. The warrant article is how you change zoning.
Yeah, okay.
And this is happening in real time. This
Yeah,
isn't
yeah,
stuff that's
okay.
gone back 6 months, whatever. This is them coming out with us, meeting with your chair and vice chair, expressing their concern. And that's how the process works. And that's how we've done it with whether it was Kronos in the past or Zoll or others. I mean, that's how the process unfolds, is they come in the initial stages, they want confidentiality, and to the point where they're then ready to say, okay, we'll bring it public.
So, Joel,
Mike,
this-
let me ask a question on Mike. You've been on the board for a while. Is this a regular practice for the town manager to put warrant articles for
I
zoning?
can't say that I've seen it, but it's
Okay.
certainly been suggested,
Yep.
you know,
All right.
and
Well, that's all
I'm
right.
not
Thank you.
particularly concerned about how the stuff gets on the warrant. I'm more concerned about the degree to which we get to apply some thought and consideration to solving the
Right.
problem.
Right.
And this may be as good a way as any. For this particular case, the changes are relatively small and they're quite well defined.
I mean, I welcome this.
But even beyond that, Joel, I mean, Evan and I were the initial instigators of the
129.
not only 129, but more recently, the ADU thing.
Yeah.
We were the ones who, and not to take anything away from Chris or this board, but we were the ones pushing this thing from the very beginning when we got the draft regulations and everything else, is we got to get this in place before February 3rd.
Yeah.
And then you folks took it and ran with it. So I don't think it's out of character for us to be initiators of these type of efforts, even in very recent times.
and Joel, I do
That's
think that this
legal
one's,
compliance. I mean,
this
we
one's-
wanted to be complying with
Right.
the law.
Right.
this one's
As did
slightly
you.
different, because this one wasn't before us yet. And this meeting that we had with the property owner was extremely recent. And so this is actually the first time we would have been able to get on the agenda anyway.
I get that.
Now, being at that meeting, I did share my concerns about these two potential uses or the two potential tenants, and my concern about the ability to pass this type of change at town meeting for the entire overlay for these two specific restaurants.
So, I mean,
think-
that wasn't made clear. Paul was presenting it more as a general type of
Yeah.
type of restaurant, but actually they have a plan in place where those specific chains have presented a plan to the owner. But I have a couple of things.
But for fast food
So the-
restaurants
the
as opposed to
zoning,
upscale.
by way of review, the zoning district doesn't envision standalone restaurants.
No,
It doesn't.
there was quite a fair bit of discussion
Right,
on that.
and there was
at
a
the
whole
time.
committee before before the 129 overlay came out, and they specifically did not, they spent a significant amount of time about the type of restaurants they wanted, and they
Right, and it
envisioned.
required sit-down
Tableware. Yeah.
Table,
Yeah, tableware,
right,
yeah.
silverware.
Yep.
And so this would be rezoning from the standpoint of the standalone, also from the not requiring silverware, not requiring service, sit-down restaurant. Also, the concept of 2 drive-throughs on the site would require a zoning change, I believe.
Yep.
So it's quite specific, this proposal targeted to a very specific vision, at the gateway to the town. So, I mean, I personally think I really want to see these properties redeveloped, and I would like to see more amenities on Bill Ricker Road and in the zone, in the COID. But I mean, I personally asked the owner / real estate developer if he could come back to us, and Evan actually raised a very good point of, is there any way we could incentivize a business that was more amenable to us as an amenity, in terms of maybe offering them a TIF or doing something by offering them something by right, so that a different business than specifically a drive-through small McDonald's or a drive-through small Starbucks could be interested in the site. And so my understanding of the end of that meeting was that they were gonna get back to us.
Like I'm okay with if we want to get rid of the, like it has to be part, like it needs to be like a standalone free thing. But I don't want a McDonald's there. That's not what I signed up for as a town meeting rep. I'm sorry, and I live at McDonald's. Like anybody knows me. Like I'm probably McDonald's best customer, but I don't want it there. I don't want another Drum Hill on 129. And when this was passed with this overlay, they were very, it was zoned in a manner that I felt comfortable as a town meeting rep to vote in favor of it.
But they're not coming to us, those businesses that we felt comfortable with.
Wait a minute. We had Beehive come to us and they proposed what they were trying to do, and we were able to say, well, what we'd really like is, if you can put some sort of something, cafe or something in the front, right? Like on the first floor. And they're like, oh, we would love that too. So again, we've got Beehive going on, right? I don't think we should be changing the zoning because one property owner wants it changed because that's all they can do. And again, I have my concerns about this passing. Again, it goes back to the trust. This is what we proposed to the town. This is what we did. I'm fine with it being like a standalone upscale restaurant like that. Sure, right? That's a different feel. Even if it has a drive-through component to it or a pickup component that drives through, that I'm fine with. I'm not fine with the fast food restaurant. Absolutely not. I think that's opening the floodgates. Because then, again, and I remember this at town meeting, people, especially when we started doing we said drive-through, we're like, okay, now someone mentioned this, we allowed this thing today. Then in a couple of years, you're gonna come back and say, oh, we want this thing. And now this is exactly what we're doing. We said they wouldn't do that, but it's exactly what we're doing. So if we open up one, oh, well, now you only have 3. Well, this property owner, well, we want that because that's all we can attract. So I can tell you right now, as a planning board member and as a town meeting rep, I'm not in favor of this.
So I agree with you, and I did bring those points up at the meeting. I think, though, that this is a different situation than the prior article, because it was presented at town meeting, we voted on it at town meeting for a specific reason. I think there's a good reason for the town manager to now bring this change up, explaining the situation, and letting town meeting decide whether or not we want to change it. I think as a planning board member, I wouldn't support it, and as a town meeting rep, I wouldn't support it, but I do think there's value in bringing it back to town meeting to say, times have changed, this is the current proposal, do we want to make this change?
And we even talked about this about 30 days ago, right? Remember, we had this conversation, and I think the takeaway, Chris, I think you mentioned it, was that it may be time to go back out in the community and reset expectations,
Right.
update and reset expectations. And unfortunately, the way much of this happens is as soon as we talk about something,
Boom.
coincidentally, something walks in the door, and we're not ahead of it. We're kind of
Catching up.
just started the conversation, and then we find ourselves reacting.
So, I think if Chris and Anita are expressing other sentiments, which I think you're expressing mine, so one thing we could do would be to support the bringing of the warrant article, which isn't really for us to do or not, but not support the article.
John, you wanted to say something?
I was just going to say, for that particular site, if you've ever driven by there, it literally looks like you could reach out of one of the windows of the building and almost touch the on-ramp. That's how close it is to Route 3. I think if you were going to do a restaurant, I'm not saying McDonald's may be the right choice, but, we don't control that, but I think certainly a Starbucks, I can't see the downside of that. I do think we have to look at, could we tweak the zoning so that if there were any drive-through restaurants, that they're kind of down near that end of Billerica Road, so they're not.
Starbucks, though, you wouldn't have to change the reusable silver. Starbucks is not again, right? Gotta be careful with, because Starbucks would fall into our current zoning. with the exception of it being a standalone, right? But we know Starbucks goes into buildings all the time, right? So that's a little bit different.
Well, and again, we could do things like having the architecture be, not their typical architecture, like,
Yeah, but then, again, I think there's a little bit of a distrust with, like, I think what makes people feel more comfortable with zoning is when we put that, like, this is what we want, and we describe what we want clearly in our zoning bylaws, as opposed to leave it to 7 individuals on this board.
Which is why I'm not proposing that this be a planning board zoning change, that
Yeah,
this
I'm
is
not, yeah.
town manager bringing it to
Yep.
town meeting, because it was a town meeting decision
Yep.
for the overlay with a committee. And we probably don't have time to reform that committee and make these overlay changes. So I think it makes sense to bring it back to town meeting for that vote. Now, I would probably want some amendments to this article for, like, maybe instead of plastic silverware, have bamboo or eco-friendly type of silverware.
But I would leave it as reusable, because that's
Completely outside of zoning.
Yeah.
Right, I know, but that's my point.
There's no point, I understand what the managers are just trying to bring it to town meeting, but there's no point in bringing it to town meeting if the planning board is going to be opposed and make recommendations or suggest to town meeting that it's not specific enough. The overlay in and of itself wasn't very specific. It was fairly wide open, with the exception of very specific about what kinds of fast food drive-throughs we were willing, but it didn't talk about whether it was a McDonald's or a Chipotle.
right, but
I mean, you guys need to be really, really
it-
cognizant of the messaging, not just for this particular property. But if you're gonna start having public debates about, we're not okay with the McDonald's, but if you brought us something else, that, the marketplace picks up on that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So
But
that's not what zoning is
upscale
about.
fast food is very different than fast food.
No, if a McDonald's wanted to comply, they could comply.
But they're
That's not
likely
their
not
business
going
model.
to.
That's not their
Because
business
it's not their
model.
corporate business model.
Correct.
But that's my point, is
Correct.
that if the presentation were about another pressed cafe type of place, that's a very different discussion.
I understand that, but that's not the opportunity.
Right.
And so,
or if McDonald's wanted to try, an upscale fast
all
food.
my only point is, you're not gonna transition this article to a project-based rezoning. While you may be interested, and the community may want to see specifics, as drafted, it's not project-based. It's
Right.
not even property-based.
I know.
But we're
And-
changing
what
this
I'm hearing
because
from
of
you is
one
that
property.
you're looking for, you'd prefer an article that was much more tailored.
No. It's being triggered by a specific project. And I'm saying the trigger threshold is down here. I'm saying I want it back up here.
The reason it's being triggered by a project is because there's no other way to do planning and zoning in Chelmsford. You're unwilling to do it proactively. We had the conversation 30 days ago, and you guys agreed that it was time to update the community and reestablish expectations. But we haven't done that.
Right. We haven't had time.
No, I know, but time is of the essence. Now now an opportunity walks in the door, which, in my estimation, it's a modification to the original vision. It's not scrapping the original vision.
It's changing a very significant component
Exactly.
of that vision.
It's
Right.
readjusting to realities. We talked about this.
So,
That's what the
a-
article, that's what the
to
presentation is going to be about.
I wouldn't say it's to realities, I'd say it's to an opportunity that has presented itself. There may be other realities
That
out there that
opportunity
have
is-
not been
That
explored.
opportunity is the first time that the marketplace has expressed and committed itself to Chelmsford. There's been no other market indication. There isn't any. And this wasn't on their radar screen either. They articulated that.
And it's been some time since we've had the overlay in existence, but I guess what I'm confused about is, what you're almost saying is that if Press Cafe were to move across the street into a standalone drive-through, that would be okay, but because it's McDonald's, it's not okay. And I guess cause that's what I'm hearing is, well, it's got to be up here, not down here.
McDonald's had an upscale restaurant.
Why does that
Then-
matter?
then-
Because
then-
because what all the concerns I've ever heard about zoning were appearance, traffic counts, traffic impact, and so forth. Why are we so concerned with what kind of food is served at the restaurant,
'Cause
or what's going on there?
It's
Because
the quality of the business.
Quality of the business.
and you're saying that the quality of those businesses wouldn't be of interest to the tenants and users in the business overlay district, that they wouldn't welcome a Starbucks
Or the community.
or the
But a
community?
Starbucks, right?
I disagree,
A Starbucks can operate within the current zoning as is written,
but not standalone.
with the exception of a standalone.
Right.
But it can operate as is. And Starbucks, as a business model, does go into locations. And by the way, so does McDonald's. There are cases where they've because of the zoning in the town, they've gone into a
But it-
colonial house, there's
Well,
plenty of.
Westford.
Paul's already indicated you can control the architecture.
You can control that architect. I'm just sort of puzzled as to
But,
what
again-
that, as to.
I think you're assuming what it's going to look like externally and internally. That's why I suggested to them that if the McDonald's is going to build a new modern prototype, that would be good to know.
But if it's, this zoning that got approved it's an upscale, fast casual restaurant. It says, must provide reusable dinnerware for on-site interior consumption, which we're taking out.
Because it was tailored to press, because we knew at the time that press was looking. We knew.
But Evan, it
That's the
set
type
the
of restaurant,
threshold
it
at
set the
press.
threshold up here. I don't
As we
want to
discussed
lower
30
it.
days ago,
Where are we
that was a more of,
today, though?
looking back, that was more aspirational.
We
Or at the time, we literally thought that the
were
market
on
would
the board
embrace
when
it.
that was
The
developed.
market has not embraced it. So how long do you want to wait, and how many opportunities do you want to let go by and say, we're waiting for something better?
And I get that, and I understand
I
that.
think that's
And that's
the
why
purpose.
I want to bring this to town meeting, not
And when
here.
and when we saw that and we allowed the plaza up right across the street that was going to be for retail, the sub shop, restaurant, everything else, it ended up being rented by this special services facility entirely. And there is no market. The market has told us there is no such market for that, which is why these folks can't build a plaza at their site either, because there's no market for it. You remember across the street up in the hill, remember they were going to have a restaurant and the retail plaza, and they all get leased by a facility. So what I'm saying is the market is telling us what's out there.
Let me make a suggestion.
For
It sounds like
amenities
you
and-
guys, you're handling this one differently than the previous article. So it sounds like it's going to advance towards town meeting. Starting tomorrow, starting at next week's zoning public hearing, I can encourage the property owner to provide more information. If they want to engage, they can engage to provide more information. But I would encourage the board to try to be open to that information between now and town meeting, rather than taking a strong position this evening. If you're going to take a strong position this evening, then it's difficult for that property owner to want to engage, because
Right.
you're already sending messages.
Right.
Right.
But we've asked those questions. I mean, we asked for.
Yeah. I
Why
mean,
couldn't
at
it be a bit? We agreed. We didn't. McDonald's wasn't our first choice, and they
No,
kept
no.
coming back to,
Okay.
look, we can't. There isn't the market for
Yeah,
the
and
others to come there.
I think, I'm fine with can be a freestanding, I didn't realize we had actually put it that it had to be part of the building. I think that provides a little bit more flexibility, to be quite honest. But I'm not so, personally, I'm not comfortable with the rest of the stuff changing. Maybe
didn't-
that's
I
the
didn't hear what you
friendly, and then I'm not as comfortable with the other items changing.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
Maybe that's
All right.
Friendly
I think
amendment or
I think
We've exhausted it.
Beating
We-
this one to death.
should,
Okay.
we have a lot of other things to get to,
Okay.
and I think that we've made some headway, and I think we should hope that the owner would be willing to engage with us and give us more information about what they're imagining.
I'll mention it to him, but let's not try to make this a project-based rezoning. It's not about their property. They happen to be the catalyst for the town to take action.
But but it's also constrained. You can only have 3 of these. We already have 1. This would be the second.
But
So
it's
not
anywhere,
a-
I was gonna ask you
Well,
this
this would
question.
be the
It's
second and
anywhere
the
in that
third.
whole
No,
overlay.
no, it's only allowed.
Just calling that one
No,
area
it's
out?
only
It's-
allowed
Yeah, I heard what you said earlier. It's allowed
From
down
Mill
Mill
to
Road
Alpha.
down Mill
I know where
Road.
you're right.
and all of Billerica Road.
Up to
Yeah, all
Alpha.
of Bill Road, all the way up to
Beyond,
Apollo.
beyond Alpine, past Apollo.
Yeah, that's where we put that original overlay for the 3
Yes,
drive-throughs.
yes.
Right.
Right,
All
so it's
the way,
still
this
in the
would be
whole
the
area.
second and the
Because we-
third.
Right.
So
No,
then
see,
there
no,
would be
this
no
would be-
more allowed.
We think, Evan, your sense in this is that if they put 2 on one site, it counts as 1 or 2?
It's one permit, but
Permit.
to your point, it could be, it's 2 separate establishments.
Separate establishments.
Two
So this
separate
is 3.
drive-throughs.
So it's 3. Then you're done.
Right.
There's nothing else goes beyond this.
Unless-
Because you're right. We
Unless you
had that-
change it
Unless
down
we
the road.
change it, right? And
Right,
then,
unless you
like-
change it, but I'm not proposing to change it.
If you got a Capital Grill that comes in with a drive-through,
Right,
right?
then
And you'd have to go
they're gonna
back to,
change
you'd have to go back to the
Right,
town
but
and ask
okay,
it.
what if Burger King comes in,
Right.
and they want one?
Correct.
But yeah, but
Right.
you have, the town has to decide that by zoning. I'm not lifting the cap.
Right, okay.
Right,
But we saw that, we still see that parcel sitting vacant that's been cleared forever on Billerica Road, and nothing has gone there.
Right?
Well, there wasn't
And that
sewer
was
for a
before,
long
no, this was
time.
before sewer, they had the ability to go there.
Billerica
This was
Road.
before the moratorium,
Never cleared.
and nothing went there.
Down here past community.
That's my point, is that while it's not technically project-based zoning, it's being catalyzed each change by a specific
Big project, we
project.
keep doing
So
that.
Yeah, because,
it's
because
not-
the town's not expediting proactive planning to adjust to the market conditions. And we discussed 30 days ago, you're not even sure that you want to adjust to the market conditions. And some of us aren't even sure what the market conditions are.
Right, so all
So,
more
so,
reason why,
so like I said, 30 days later, they walk in the door and they're telling us what the market conditions are.
Well, one property owner is telling us what the market
No,
conditions
the
What somebody wants to
CBRE,
rent.
a commercial broker who
Build.
represents, Merrimack Valley,
I'm
down
gonna tell you
Route
what they
3.
want to tell you. Like, I mean, and
But,
it's
you know,
like,
all I can tell you is who's come to us, and nobody else has
okay,
come
all
to
right,
us.
they're
We're-
trying to
we'll-
get what they need in that area, so they're gonna kind of tell you what they want. You kind of have to go and reach out to, yeah.
Again, messaging,
careful.
like, they're likely watching tonight or will watch tonight. This is not the way you go about engaging with
getting
people who are trying to spend
businesses.
money in your community. This is not how to do business in a friendly manner.
I gotta say, if you want citizens to serve on this board, I would not make comments like, we're not being proactive, we're not doing zoning timely. We've just gone through MBTA zoning, we've just gone through the ADU thing. It took up a lot of time. I take offense to
You
that.
have to be open to the opportunity.
I also take offense to it because you're essentially saying we're not crossing the goal line, but we don't even know where the goal line is. And I, for one, would like to have conversations offline about how we can resolve this. It's not that I'm not interested in being responsive. I want to be responsive, but I don't want to be criticized for not being responsive when we haven't even had the opportunity to even know how to be responsive. I think everyone on this board wants to be responsive.
And in fairness, like, that was the whole reason we came up with our priorities of which areas we wanted to tackle. We decided on Kate's Corner, which kind of opened up a whole
It was
nother.
a place to start.
Which is a place to start. So we have been proactive. It is part of our, I think, goals this year, was to look at zoning. So just because we didn't look at the, because this particular property was, they came up and they had a different idea and that wasn't
Okay.
on our list, does not mean that
like
we're not
beating
proactively
a dead
doing
horse.
this.
Can we move along to the next topic?
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Paul. I lost my agenda. My pile of, okay. Next, we have the lighting bylaw.
Yeah.
You got on at just the right time.
All right.
Kelly Beatty's with us. Kelly, you're on Zoom? What, he is on.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
He's not on the boat.
Thanks, Kel.
No boat.
Not in the Caribbean.
Nope, I'm in California.
Oh.
Okay. So has
So
everyone?
the intent here was just to provide an update. This public hearing opens next, 2 weeks from tonight. That hearing does not need to be closed. on the 26th. This, I think, represents the final draft. It's been reviewed by council. It's been revised accordingly. Kelly has made some additional final edits of it. It's in the draft warrant, and it is undergoing a final legal format review by council. Kelly, do you want to walk through any of the major changes?
Really, council had two kinds of comments. One had to do with the whole notion of how to handle special permits, and I think that, Evan, thank you very much for correcting and updating the wording on that. And the other was that I think he had some concern, just to back up a sec, the plan here is to make this a general bylaw so that when enacted, all all lighting fixtures that don't meet the requirements are deemed non-conforming, and there's a 10-year period to bring those into conformance, but with some triggers along the way that might encourage the conversion ahead of time, like sale of property or something like that. And I think council interpreted those opportunities as, Evan, correct me if I'm wrong here, they didn't actually necessarily have to do with lighting, like a change of ownership, and therefore, why was the exemption called into question at that point? And what I tried to point out was that we're not really exempting all of these non-conforming fixtures. They are non-conforming, and we're just looking for opportunities to encourage their conversion to conforming within this 10-year period ahead of 10 years, as the case might be. So, Evan, correct me if I'm wrong, but those were they're all good points, and I think we've addressed them. And as Evan says, I think this is in good shape and ready to go.
Okay.
So it does have a zoning article attached to the top of this page. It's on the screen. It does have Article 30 within the town meeting warrant as a zoning article. It's to delete the outdoor illumination in its entirety, and then just add a new A and a new B. And then the rest of it will be a non-zoning article that will be presented as a general town bylaw.
I had a few questions based on town council's comments. Kelly, have you thought any more about the ownership trigger based on the condo and HOA comments?
Yeah, that condo and HOA comment was actually mine.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know how to approach that. I can see it can be an issue because it's, when somebody sells a condo or somebody sells a home within an HOA, those are, there are all kinds of rules for those that I don't know. How do you handle other kinds of zoning bylaws in those situations? Like when you want to bring something into conformance, like carbon monoxide detectors or something like that. Are there triggers that would apply only to one unit within a condo complex or an HOA complex?
The individual units are inspected upon sale, and then the common areas are inspected either annually or biannually.
So essentially, for those types of exterior components of condos or HOAs, it would essentially be non-conforming upon the inspection at that 10-year limit.
Right, unless the owner decides to bring him into conformance before then, just voluntarily.
I think the challenge with this provision as it pertains to residential or commercial condos is one individual unit changes ownership, but they have no ability.
Right.
And there's no relationship between that and the association.
Well, let's keep in mind that many condo situations, the owner really doesn't have control of the outer wall. only the inner wall. So I don't think this is nearly as big a problem as we may be trying to make it out to be. Yeah, you can do condos other ways. I mean, I don't know that the law says that a condo can't include its outer wall, but I don't think most of them do.
But my point is that by saying that a property with existing luminaries that change ownership for any reason is the trigger, and the owner doesn't have the ability to change the external.
Right, exactly. You may
Then
very well not have it.
So they
They
would be
can't follow
accepted
this.
if they
Right.
would be accepted, because they don't control that wall. They don't control that luminary.
But I'm assuming we should probably explicitly say that those are the exceptions.
I would articulate, I would clarify this, because it's going to become problematic for condos, situations.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe for the condo association, it's not the individual change of ownership, but they fall under just the 10-year provision.
Yeah, we've got the 10-year in there anyway. That'll cover most of them. Now, for the HOAs, that's a different matter because there you're likely to have something.
So then maybe just say this,
House.
maybe just say 3.3.4 does not apply to individual sales within condo associations or, residential and commercial condo associations, but it does apply to 3.3.2.
To the
Well,
extent that
3.3
the
point-
individual condo owner doesn't control the luminaries.
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal here is to get the exterior lights, particularly the freestanding lights,
Yeah.
updated,
Is town meeting approving
which would fall under 3.3.
all of this?
Yes.
All of this?
Yep.
Yep.
Ooh.
So we've
And
talked.
Evan, to your point, the condo association or the HOA would also control any area lighting, exterior area lighting, or post lights along the streets, because those are
Yes.
often under the developer's control, and so
Right.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
All right, so we'll add some clarity on 3.3.4, that it's not triggered by individual condo
Well, I mean, we
ownership
could make
changes.
say, I don't know if we want to get into this, but maybe we could say something to the extent of, like, if the condo association is doing renovations, they would be expected at that time
He's
to
got
be-
that covered under 3.3.
Yeah.
The association in its entirety is covered under
So
3.3.
I have a issue with the whole thing about the sale. I think if you're doing a renovation, like, that's fine, right? Like, I think trying to either put a time limit on this for 10 years or trigger it based off of a sale, I think naturally, if you have this type of bylaw, like in this, it's going to happen, right? I think it'll just naturally take effect. I think trying to pass something like this with these restrictions on there, it's gonna be problematic.
I disagree.
I don't think so. And I think if you don't put a time limit or something triggering, it'll never happen. People won't do it.
And people don't want noise pollution on their property from their neighbors, so I think it's gonna pass.
And there are triggers already with fire, with smoke alarms,
Yeah,
fire detection.
there's all sorts of things you have to bring up to code when you sell.
Okay, it's gonna be a long town meeting.
If I could just address that a little bit, let's remember that there has been in place an outdoor lighting bylaw for a quarter of a century that has largely been ignored. Anyone who has installed an LED fixture and doesn't comply with the old bylaw, and that's virtually most of them, ignored the previous bylaw in the first place. So they're already in nonconformance, even if we didn't have this one going forward. I'm using this and this 10-year sunset clause as a gentle way to try to bring some of those now already non-conforming fixtures into compliance.
Okay, I think at a previous meeting, if there's no more specific questions, we've
I
already.
did have a few more.
Okay.
Kelly, on 453, the holiday lighting, given the town council's comments on that, and the fact that it's really not enforceable, I would suggest removing that section,
I was gonna, that was another one I was.
because I think it's going to create a whole.
Which one are you referring to?
Holiday lighting.
Holiday.
4.5.
I had concerns about it before, but given town council's concerns, and the fact, Kelly, that I understand that it offers a gentle guidance is the intent, but having that in a bylaw is a little bit more than gentle guidance. And it really is unenforceable as written.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with removing it. It's certainly, so here's the question then you have to be willing to address. Some people have really extreme holiday lighting that you can imagine a neighbor would find disruptive.
Yep.
And if they're leaving that lighting on all night long, but it's temporary, then you, as the aggrieved neighbor, have no real recourse to get some control on that. And maybe that's just, the price you pay for not having any mention of it in there.
I think, though, that in general it could be covered under the more general 4.5, where it does cover some of the more generic standards where it's turned off or dimmed. The more general guidance or information about the color temperature. So I think I agree. I think already
you're right.
covered in there, and to call out holiday lighting just will open up a whole can of worms that.
I think that's fine.
But,
I think that's fine.
let me point out that we do have other places in the town bylaws where we make obviously unenforceable suggestions. Remember the one we had for 30-day limit on political signs? Completely unenforceable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
Mike,
it's a good
I
hint.
don't know if you saw the flame war that erupted on the Chelmsford News Facebook site about this.
I don't touch Facebook with a 10-foot pole. Tell me about
well,
it.
let me tell you that I think he's right. This was a third rail, and I see little downside to removing it, and potentially lots of downside to keeping it. So I'm okay with striking that.
Okay.
All right, yeah, that's whatever it takes to get this or something very close to it passed.
On the string lights, 454.
Yes.
Question I had about that is when you talk about the lighting in total, is that string lights individually plugged in, or is it when you connect the string lights together?
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about
big
how
is
many
a
string lights you
string?
can attach in series. And so having some clarity in there about what a string is, whether
It does, what it says is such lighting, not such luminaire. So it says such lighting in total, and I think that's pretty clear.
But if you have 5 sets of string lights in one outlet, 5 sets in another side of the building, is that 10 in total?
I think we're overthinking this.
I'm just trying to make it
Yeah.
clear so that when people, especially at town meeting, when people have questions
Yeah,
and
your
enforceability,
point's well taken.
that it doesn't have to be decided tonight, but that's just one area that might need clarification.
Well, it does say, Chris, such lighting in total
Yeah.
shall not exceed 2,000 lumens. What does in total mean in your mind in that context?
But that's my question. Is it in total for one string, or if I plug in?
doesn't- But it doesn't say such strings, it says such lighting.
Yeah.
So all of the lighting of this type on this property shall not exceed in total 2,000 lumens.
Yeah, I would read
Okay.
it that way.
Okay. That makes sense.
And by the way, not I don't want to call undue attention to it. There are lots of communities where this string lighting on residential properties is a serious problem for neighbors and neighborhoods. I haven't really seen much of it in Chelmsford. I have seen 2 businesses downtown that have string lights that use them. As far as I can tell, they're on all night. And the holiday period has kind of passed. But that might fall more under the sign bylaw than the string light bylaw, because I kind of see string lights on a business as an advertisement for that business.
Yeah. And then the last one, 4.7, lighting in a public way. I saw town council's comments on that. I don't know if you want to change that to lighting in a parking lot. I'm assuming it was more intended for parking lots, walkways on a specific property and not along the town roads.
Actually, so Chris, let me give you an example of where that applies. If you're a business along Chelmsford Street, and there are several of them, and you want to illuminate your parking lot, you contract with National Grid to put a large spotlight up on the utility pole that is in the right of way.
Ah, got it. Okay.
And that's what this is intended to capture.
So maybe it should be clarified to be public or private lighting on public utility poles or something like that, because based on town council's comments, it almost reads to be street lighting as opposed to which you described.
Well, I had a comment about town council's comment. Lighting like would be covered here I can't imagine it not being anything except being in addition to whatever municipally installed street lighting is already there.
Okay.
So it's not in place of the municipal street lighting and therefore is somehow unsafe. It's just something that's added on. Arguably the street light that we have is adequate for safety and security. That's a whole different topic, but this is for, and it need not necessarily be just private lighting. It could be that the town or the housing authority or something wants to put up some extra lights on those poles. We'd like to capture those and make them conforming.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for careful reading.
Okay, so in the past, we have already expressed our support for this bylaw, and I think that we can move on to the next topic unless anyone has anything further.
I have one question, Madam Chair. One is that there was, I think it was voted on that that the planning board would co-sponsor this, but it doesn't show up that way in the bylaw, in the article warrant template. Also, my last name is misspelled.
I'll pass that on to the manager, both items.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we should publicize the fact that we co-sponsor this.
Yes.
Yep.
I think that's important.
Thank you. I continue to be very humbled and grateful for your support.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Next
Thanks,
up,
Kelly.
we have floodplain bylaws updates, and we have a,
Same intent here.
Yep.
This reflects the state-approved proposed article. This is compliant with the Mass FEMA floodplain model. In addition to updating the bylaw, this is also simultaneously updating the FEMA flood maps, as well as the reference to the studies that are, this section right here, the FIRM and the FIS flood insurance study reports. Those are dated July 8th, 2025. That's the correct date. That's the date in which, excuse me, in which FEMA intends to publish effective maps. Many towns in eastern Massachusetts will be updating their bylaw and map references this spring town meeting. Unfortunately, there's a lot of new text, so this was not a case of deleted in its entirety.
Excuse me.
I thought that probably the most effective way to present this to town meeting was to do the red line showing where there's deletions and where there's new text. The provisions, the existing provisions that are local options to be more restrictive than the state models are still in here. There are only a few of them, but they remain in here. And then on the map itself, where's the map? It is only the northern portion of Chelmsford that is actually seeing map changes. The central and southern portion of the town do not have any FEMA map changes. The changes have geographic areas being removed and others being added. I don't know enough about whether the elevations are changing significantly or not. That information is typically within the flood insurance study. So that's the summary in a nutshell. We did this about a decade ago. We did this exact process with town meeting.
Now, who's presenting this?
Right, that was mine.
Yeah, I mean, normally, and I always say I'm willing and able to present, but again, I keep hearing tonight about mistrust and things of that nature. I'm not inclined or thrilled to present this on the board's
Do we
behalf.
have someone who, like, from this, who did this, like, study?
FEMA.
Oh,
So
They're having a little trouble
there's
right now.
There's a Massachusetts flood hazard mitigation office. That is the office who I worked with, the lady who presented to you, and who reviewed it and deemed it compliant. I don't know if they're generally
It would be helpful
available.
if one of, like, if someone who had a little bit more experience, like, if they were there, kind of like what we had for
Yeah.
NIMCOG, they were available, like,
I would feel real stuck trying to present this because I don't understand it well enough.
me neither.
I would be willing to present it because it's pretty straightforward. It's changes that FEMA's requiring us to make.
Take it or leave it.
Yeah,
However, I think seeing if she would be available to also be there and be able to answer questions
Yeah.
would certainly be helpful.
yeah, I think this one will pass reasonably easily, but I think there will be questions and somebody who can give
Like, the more specific.
specific
that,
answers
like,
to them.
related to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, is this something that Christine Clancy would be something? on the
Possibly, I
subject?
can ask her.
If she'd be willing to stand by and help us with questions.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we did this, we did not have any specific property owner questions, and we referred them to the actual FEMA website, where it's very interactive. It's not intended to be property specific.
But I think the FEMA website's down, maybe.
No, it's
brought it
up and
back
running. It's up and running. I was just on it yesterday. The primary goal is to adopt the updated floodplain bylaw, which is, as Chris indicated, it's very straightforward. In fact, procedurally, we're not changing anything. But I will ask Christine if she is able to speak to the technicalities of the map changes, and I will ask if the flood hazard mitigation office can be available.
Okay.
That'd be great. Okay, we have no new public hearings. We have 65 Dunstable Road, to whom I feel.
Yep, I handed out a new, slightly revised version.
Looked decent to me.
This hearing is still open. Chris Sullivan, the applicant, is with us on Zoom.
Hello, I'm available. CJ, be quiet.
So Evan, in the revised version, I mentioned this to you before the meeting, but you addressed all of the questions that I had on the special conditions. The culvert clarification was a good one. I saw in our packet clean letters for DPW, but I haven't seen one for the water district or the tax collector. Are those issues resolved?
I know John issued
Yeah,
a memo. It may not be linked in, but I'm certain on the, on John. The Water District one, while we may not have a final clean letter, usually their first letter says we want them to meet with us.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, they had issues with the connections, and I'm
Yeah,
assuming...
so technically, your approval doesn't bound the Water District. They have their own rules and regulations. They can require changes, modifications. It's more of a coordination
Yeah.
effort.
But because of the changes based on their
If they're
initial letter, I'm
significant-
assuming they're okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anything.
Yeah. Okay.
If there are no other questions, I'll take a motion.
Well, the public hearing's still open, right?
Oh,
Yes.
So, any public? Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion by Mike Raisbeck, second by Anita. And then I'll take another motion.
I would move that we approve the certificate of decision as written. Do we have any other, I mean, it's already got, I think, conditions in it, so, does it?
Yep.
So, I think it's all here.
Do we have a second?
Oh, second. Sorry.
Motion by Mike Raisbeck, second by Anita, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous?
Good.
Okay.
And
Is requesting continuation, right?
Next up, we have
what are
the
they,
request for continuation on pallet.
He's all set, right?
Next
Request for
meeting?
continuation on pallet
did
until.
they give a date?
I don't know. Evan, did they specify a
Yeah,
date?
to 2/26.
Move to grant continuation to February 26th?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion by Mike, second by Anita, unanimous. Next up, we have liaison updates. Raisbeck?
Nothing particular here.
Do not have anything at this time.
We have
Have
a
an
vinyl
assignment
square
yet,
meeting
do you?
tomorrow night.
I have to give you one.
We have a vinyl square meeting tomorrow night,
Okay.
so I'll have an update the next one.
When, so the last, Center Village was at the same time with my FinCom, so I was kinda,
Marcy, do you want to do Center Village?
all right. Perfect. I don't know when the next meeting was, so that was my next question. So we're gonna,
Can we do a motion on that? Or do you want to put it on the next agenda so that it's on the
Is
agenda?
that what's proper?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Let's do that.
appoint Center Village.
Yep.
Village.
Okay.
If they're meeting in the Angeville, could she go as a,
They're meeting, I think, this Thursday.
yeah, and I got FinCom.
could she go as a,
Yeah,
Yeah,
as a temporary appointment?
So tomorrow they're
until
meeting.
a-
tomorrow, that's right.
This Thursday, that would be tomorrow?
Pretty sure they're meeting tomorrow.
yep.
And that's here?
Yeah, it's usually they meet in person and via Zoom, but in person, it's in 200.
Is that going to be an okay thing for you tomorrow, Marcy?
Ooh, that might be tough. No. I can make tomorrow's meeting.
Any, Joel, do you have any liaison?
I do not, because I had a conflict. I couldn't make the Board of Health. So I apologized.
No, that's fine. If you have that, I mean, I'm interested in that, so if you have that come up again and you want to just shoot me a
Yes,
text.
I will do that. It kind of came up last minute.
Okay, that's
I'll
fine.
try to do that if I know in advance.
But I'm close by and.
Yeah, same thing. I'm down the street, so.
Anita, you,
No,
no, nothing. And Chris?
Concom, pretty light. Hildreth and Palet were both continued yesterday as well, so they'll be hearing both of those day before our next meeting.
And can you just refresh me, if you don't mind, what their issues are? Palet, they're interested in the green space and the trees, is that right? And the removal of the parking lot and what gets put there?
Yeah, pretty much the same plan that we were
Yeah,
reviewing.
but those are their issues pertaining to Palet.
Yeah.
And then their open issues pertaining to Hildreth?
Hildreth, it's related to the natural heritage decision, as well as a possible peer review of that report that would then potentially influence some of their special conditions.
Got it. Okay. I have nothing. New business?
Okay, nothing there.
I don't think there's anything. Meeting minutes?
I would move to accept the meetings,
Have
the
a-
minutes of
I
122.
have something.
You have a change?
I came
changes.
late and also left early. I was I was in Puerto Rico and
oh, God. I didn't read them, so I'm gonna have to
We'll table
abstain.
those.
Can we table those?
Evan, a couple changes I noticed that if she can adjust on the Dunstable vote, Joel's name was missing, and it should be a 7-0 vote. For Palet, my name was missing, and that should be a 7-0 vote, I think.
and I came in during the open space presentation. I missed the first couple minutes of that. But then I was there, I think I
Yeah.
was there till liaison updates. But I said I'm going off when I went off.
Okay.
Yeah, you had like a 5 o'clock flight or something like that.
What's that?
You had an early morning flight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a 5 a.m. flight. I had to be up at 3, and I was pinching my arm to not fall asleep.
I'll double check on mine.
Thing I learned in residency. Next meeting updates. What do we have next meeting besides?
Meeting, we have
26 next
Palet,
week.
the zoning public hearing, and the continued Kate's Corner neighborhood discussion. And I think you slated it to start at 6:30. The zoning public hearing was advertised to start at 7.
Can we do Palet, the first thing?
I'm sorry.
Can we do the Palet one first?
Yeah,
I mean, they've been here for the past couple of
Yeah.
months, the last
a
one.
lot.
Yeah.
I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah. Were they here tonight?
There was a group
No,
here that left.
no,
but-
they were not here tonight. They did submit
I didn't announce
final
that it
plans
was
today,
continued.
so there should be plenty of time between now and the 26th for departments to review those.
And they'll be at Concom
The
the night
25th.
before.
Does that include stormwater?
Yeah, they submitted revised. Yep.
So the zoning public hearing, is that going to include all 3 of our zoning?
It includes, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, but it includes, yes, it includes all the zoning articles. It was advertised to include all the zoning articles. Based upon tonight, it sounds like Maple Road is likely being removed. That's at least
That was
what
my
I heard.
understanding.
Yep.
Yep.
So it'll include
The MBTA miscellaneous,
Yeah.
floodplain,
and lighting.
lighting,
And
and 129.
no,
Again, those hearings are, we're only required to open those hearings. We can do initial presentations. You can spend as much time as you want on them, but you have all of March and even into April
Yeah, but yeah.
to keep them open.
How are we handling that public hearing? Are we doing any presentations or anything
on the floodplain and the,
on any of them?
I think we should just open the hearing and not do a presentation on the floodplain, since, I mean,
The presentation for town meeting, so.
the other one's the town manager's warrant articles, so he can make a presentation. I mean, I would assume, since it's a zoning warrant article, that he would make the presentation at our meeting, correct, Evan?
I think that's reasonable at this point.
And then I think Kelly
Right.
can do a short synopsis if he wants, or however he wants to handle it, of the lighting. I mean, I feel like he's given rather extensive presentations to us along the way.
Yeah, the only item that you're required to hear is the zoning amendments. But for purposes of public information and kind of packaging the whole thing, if you want to have Kelly
I think
do a
that's
presentation on
appropriate.
the general bylaw.
Well, I think we have to because it's kind of tied to the zoning change.
And,
I mean, you'll
and
have to
we're
at town
supporting
meeting.
it.
And he's an
I don't know
excellent
if-
speaker.
And we're
I'm not sure
supporting it.
you need to
You
do it
pitch
as
it.
part of the planning board public hearing, but I don't think it'd be any harm. I think it'd be beneficial, actually.
Yeah, okay.
And then I can prepare something for the MBTA related. I want to stop calling it MBTA related.
Yeah.
These are just general zoning bylaws changes that
Yeah,
were indicated by the
I mean,
AG.
I think the way Paul initially drafted it, I think was simply based upon the fact that it was required as part of the AG's
AG.
Yeah,
review. But yeah, it is a little misleading.
yeah. So I'll make that change in the presentation.
And should we handle the floodplain?
I'll reach out to Christine tomorrow and the floodplain administrator.
Okay,
If they can, if they can attend, great. If they can zoom in,
that'd be great.
I mean, I can put something together as a initial.
yep. I mean,
Summary?
I'll also send the board out all of the materials that the floodplain administrator presented to you, and there's a variety of other information. There's frequently asked questions, so it's very similar to what the state did with MBTA zoning. They have
Yeah.
all kinds of websites. I think all of that information would cover what we need to present. Again, if there's detailed technical questions, that's not really the intent of the bylaw amendment.
Beyond my scope.
But I'll
Yeah.
put something together
Okay.
for that one too.
Star. No, we just get you out of the weeds sometimes.
Fill in for the alternate.
I'll take a motion.
You got it. And she second.
And I second.
Motion by Mike Raisbeck, second by Anita. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Motion to adjourn, we'll
We're getting pretty good
specify
at
what.
this.